Time to bring on board a special guest. But before we get to him, well, here's what's interesting. He's written a book and it's called Things That Money Can't Buy. So I can think of plenty of things that money can't buy.
No, so can I, but I'm just, he's someone who believes that we're moving increasingly to a completely market-linked society. Special guest on Business Now this evening is Michael Sandel, author and professor at the Harvard University. Michael, thank you so much for taking time out and joining us on the show this evening. Firstly, you've made a compelling case on how the U.S. has drifted from being a market economy to a market society. Does the same hold true for a developing country like India as well?
To a less extent. I think the United States and some developed countries have gone further in putting a price tag on everything, in allowing market values to reach into every sphere of life: family life, personal relations, health, education, civic life, law. But I do think it's a cautionary tale for India and developing countries. It's important to gain the best that markets can provide, but not to allow market values and market thinking to dominate the whole of life.
So basically what you're saying is that everything is up for sale. Really? You really think so? Is that the case? Give us a few examples.
Well, let me give you a couple of examples. They may seem extreme. There's a city in the U.S. where if you're sentenced to a jail term, and you don't like the standard accommodations in the jail, you can buy a prison cell upgrade, a better cell. Or take a small example, and here I think there are examples of this, I suspect, in India. When I was a kid and we went to an amusement park, part of the experience was waiting in long lines for the popular rides. But now almost everywhere there are fast track or VIP tickets where you can pay extra to jump to the head of the line. I'm told that at Tirupati, it's possible to pay extra to jump to the head of the line. So this is the kind of thing when market values seep into every aspect of life. One other example on a larger scale, the way we fight wars these days. In Iraq and Afghanistan, there were more paid military contractors, private contractors on the ground than there were U.S. military troops. And so this reflects the drift to essentially putting a price tag on everything, and it may crowd out moral goods and civic goods worth caring about.
Michael, just to play the devil's advocate, what's wrong in being a market-linked society? After all, there's only one currency, and that's money.
Well, it's true, but money can't buy everything. And it may not be able to buy the things that matter most in life: friendship, love, family relations, and also civic solidarity. It also sharpens, to put a price on everything, sharpens the effect of inequality. If the only thing that money could buy were access to fancy cars and vacations, inequality would matter less. But if money determines access to getting a decent education, having decent health care, having the same political influence and voice as everyone else, then inequality matters a lot more. So making money govern all aspects of life sharpens the sting of inequality, and it also may corrupt or drive out certain non-market values, civic values, a sense of community, the social cohesion that binds a society together, that gives us a sense that we are all in this together.
You're making a case for the fact that, we can't trust markets with our civic life. But given the fact that there is transparency and predictability in market behavior, why not?
Yes, and when I come to India and talk about my book, What Money Can't Buy, I do get a response, a sympathetic response about money not being able to buy the good things in life, but a skeptical response by those who say, look, here in India, markets are a kind of cleansing tool, as you mentioned, a source of transparency to break through encrusted, unresponsive bureaucracy and the heavy hand of the state and corruption. Art markets are kind of cleansing force. And this is something that I've noticed when I've traveled around India and spoken with audiences about my book, What Money Can't Buy, that here in India, markets are sometimes seen as a way of breaking the hold of unaccountable bureaucratic power and inertia. And so I appreciate that. That's a different perspective. I'm leaning against the tendency of markets to govern everything in my society and in many developed economies. But I do think that markets can play an important part if the alternative is corruption and bureaucratic inertia and unresponsiveness. So I think we have to strike a balance. But even so, as we do it, we have to be careful to keep markets in their proper place.
So where do markets belong then, Michael? How do we know what activities should be left to market forces?
Yeah. Well, you're right, which is why this is not a simple question. Where do markets belong, and where might they do harm? And so what I'm really calling for, there's not a single formula to tell us what activities should be governed by markets and what activities by other values and norms. What I'm calling for is a more ethically engaged public debate, reasoning together, deliberating together, even arguing together about how to value the various goods that matter in social life: health, education, family life, civic life, law, politics, and what should be the role of markets in governing those non-material domains of life. Should we allow, for example, paid pregnancy, commercial surrogacy? What about a free market in organs for transplantation? Should people be able to buy and sell kidneys? What about military service? Should it be paid, or should every citizen require to perform some kind of service if his or her country needs it? So these are the kinds of questions I think we need to debate in our politics, in public discourse. I think it would invigorate public discourse to face these hard ethical questions squarely. And I also think it's the only way we're going to be able to decide where markets belong and where they don't.
Okay, that's the big question, isn't it? Where markets belong and where they don't. Michael Sandel, thank you so much for joining us on the show this evening with that unique perspective indeed. Appreciate you joining us here on ET Now.